And now, with all of that out of the way, we got to catch up with award season on where things are right now. This past weekend, three big award shows took place: the Critics' Choice Awards, the Producers Guild of America Awards, and the Directors Guild of America Awards all took place over the course of this past weekend. Critics' Choice was on Friday. PGAs and DGAs were on Saturday. They were about an hour apart. Everything was in LA. Critics' Choice was broadcast. It was on E! I got a chance to check out a bit of it, about half of the show. PGA and DGA, that they historically do not broadcast those, but we do find out, obviously, the winners who come out of those shows through social media and all of the different publications that are present on hand. And man, things are taking further twists and turns this award season. Every week we get on here and we talk about the unpredictability, where things are, where the momentum feels like it's going as we get closer and closer towards the Oscars. And now another monkey wrench has been thrown into this equation, because after these three big award shows, Anora has now emerged as the big front runner to win Best Picture at the Oscars. It feels like it's almost kind of a foregone conclusion at this point, but I'm even hesitant to say that because who knows what can still happen over the course of the next few weeks. But based on what we saw here, Anora just walked away with a lot of major looks and accomplishments from these three different award shows. At Critics' Choice, it won Best Picture. And then also at the DGA Awards, it won Best Director for Sean Baker. And at the PGA Awards, it won Outstanding Producer for Theatrical Motion Pictures, which is the biggest award that can be won at the PGAs. Now, there's some very interesting things that we have to point out about this win, but then also historically what this might mean. So when you look at the DGAs specifically, and again, Sean Baker, the director of Anora, did win that award. 9 of the last 10 Best Director winners at the Oscars also won the DGA award. The only director to not win the Oscar was back in 2020. Sam Mendes won the DGA for 1917, but he did not win the Academy Award. He lost out to Bong Joon-ho for Parasite that year. Also at the PGAs, 7 of the last 10 winners of the PGA Best Picture win have also gone on to win the Oscar for Best Picture. The notable exceptions there are, once again, 1917, but then also La La Land and The Big Short. And this is another very, very interesting fact as well. Movies that have won the Critics' Choice Award, the PGA Award, and the DGA Award, but go on to lose the Oscar for Best Picture has only happened 3 times in the last 29 years. Those movies are Saving Private Ryan, Brokeback Mountain, and La La Land. Those movies all won the Critics' Choice. They won PGA, they won DGA, but they did not win Best Picture. 3 times in 29 years that's happened. So it's pretty rare that it occurs. So Anora is looking pretty good right now for Anora. If you look at just what history says. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, it's been just a wild ride. You know, Anora, before award season kicked off, was positioned as a front runner, but then we kicked off things in January. We saw the Golden Globes happen. We saw these other announcements come out, the Oscar nominations come out. It felt like a lot of the attention and a lot of the momentum had shifted towards movies like The Brutalist and Emilia Perez. And we're going to get to Emilia Perez in a second for sure. But now Anora has sort of taken back the position as the front runner to win Best Picture at the Oscars. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? How are you feeling about this? And how crazy is it that, you know, we are on this incredibly long streak, this long award season where you really can't be sure of things. When you think you're sure, all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from underneath you.
This is one of the most interesting award seasons we've had in a very long time. I mean, I am breaking my neck left and right. Like, what is going on? But I'm here to say we are so back. Oh my God, we are so back. We are so back. We're so back because Anora. I wanted so much greatness for Anora, and there was just so much that was like not going that way. We kept hearing so much about Emilia Perez. But yeah, it's interesting to see the way in which, you know, everything's going. This award season is going, but these awards in particular, I'm like, not only do they love Anora, but I'm like, wait, do y'all hate The Brutalist? Like, dang, y'all don't like The Brutalist. That's interesting as well. But it's like, I think as of right now, I really do. Of course, with everything you just said, Anora's winning Best Picture at the Oscars, bro. I know.
You're gonna call it
It's
now. As of now, we still got SAG and we still got BAFTAs.
We still got a lot to see. We still got a lot to see. I actually think some different things will happen at BAFTA, and some different things will happen at SAG. But I it's really rare, I think, for wins like this to go unnoticed when we get to the Academy Awards in particular. And so we'll have to see what happens, but right now I'm going for it, bro. I think Anora wins Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I really do. Yeah.
Well, what's important about all this too is that all of these wins took place before the second round of voting occurred for the Academy. The second round of voting just opened up, I believe, yesterday as of recording this, and basically in the second round, that's where the ranked choice voting comes into play for Academy members to rank out who they think is going to win Best Picture. And when we just recently revisited this, I talked about the ranked choice voting and how important that's going to be in a year like this, in which there are many films in the 10 nominees for Best Picture that are pretty divisive, and I think people will feel strongly about whether or not they get their vote, and they may not vote them as high as some other films, and a movie that might get a lot of 2s or 3s across the board from different Academy members actually could end up winning. Not a movie that gets, maybe 1s from 15% of the body, but if a movie can acquire enough 2s, 3s, and even 4s, and is largely seen as an undivisive movie, which Anora, probably out of most of these films, has had the least amount of controversy around it, I mean, that presents an incredible opportunity for it to, I don't want to say come from behind, but almost just with everything that we've seen play out, kind of come from behind and take the victory away from these other movies that have been so heavily talked about, like The Brutalist and like Emilia, Perez. And I don't think that people don't like The Brutalist. I think The Brutalist is still very much a favorite and a heavy contender. We're seeing Adrian Brody still win a lot. He won Critics' Choice as well. Although historically that body does not have really any overlap with the Academy. It's critics at the end of the day. These are not people a part of the Academy, so they won't be voting in the same way in that respect. But he does still have a lot of momentum behind him. I'm still hearing a lot about Brady Corbet and just the movie itself, but it's kind of crazy that the movie about sex work and has the most explicit scenes possible could likely end up winning Best Picture this year. I mean, that's what we're talking about right now. In the midst of like these other movies that feel more like Oscar winners. They feel more like those Best Picture winners that we like. The Brutalist feels like a Best Picture winner. This big important movie about America, these big heady ideas, and then here comes this Anora movie about a sex worker, the Cinderella fantasy, Russian oligarchs, one night in New York, all sorts of weird, crazy shit. Potentially win a Best Picture it's pretty wild. I think it's a pretty wild circumstance right now, but it has a lot of momentum that's working in its favor. And also, Sean Baker winning at the DGAs.
Huge.
That's a big thing right there. And here's something that's very interesting that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but no movie in the history of the Oscars has ever won, or excuse me, not no movie, but no one person has ever won 4 Oscars for the same film in a single night. Sean Baker could actually potentially do it because Best Picture, he's credited as a producer. Best Director, obviously. He also wrote the screenplay, and he's nominated for Best Original Screenplay, and he edited the movie. He edits all of his movies, and so he'll be nominated for Best Editing. So we could be looking at history here. Sean Baker could win 4 Oscars in one night for one movie. It's never happened. The only time that one person has won 4 Oscars in one night was Walt Disney, but it was for different films. He won 3 films in the short feature film animation category, and then he also won 1 in Best Documentary. That all happened in one Oscars night, but again, multiple films. So I think that these are all like very much in play, and he likely has kind of surged in front as maybe the Best Director winner over the likes of Brady Corbet, possibly over the likes of Coralie Farge and these others, James Mangold. I mean, what do you think about that Sean Baker could ultimately walk away as Best Director at the Oscars?
It's just wow. there was just so much time that's gone by where in my head I was like, oh, it's not going to happen. Like, it's like, oh, it's not going to happen. People love Brady Corbet, or at least it seemed that people love Brady Corbet at the time. But now it's like, wow, it's definitely possible that Sean Baker walks away with that Best Director award, for sure. And I think, in talking at the top, I think in my mind at the time I hadn't seen Brutalist either, but I was like, give it to Sean Baker. Like, Anora's crazy. Like, what are we doing? Like, what's happening? And I think the other part of that is, when I do think of Best Director, though, I think Corbet still is on the table, because Brutalist is such a big, it feels like an achievement in directing. Not that Anora isn't. Anora's definitely an achievement in directing. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, whoa, what is this thing again? People still talking about the Statue of Liberty shot and all these other things. It's like, it's such a big film, but now it's crazy how the narrative is just shifting so much, man. And to see that Sean Baker really might get this thing, because there was a time where I know Anora was a lot of people's Sean Baker first Sean Baker film. Like, a lot of people had never seen Tangerine in a Florida Project, and they seen Anora. It was like, okay, that's cool. They were like, oh man, it was a really good movie. But a lot of people didn't expect, I don't know, a lot of people didn't feel, I guess what a lot of us other felt was like, no, man, Sean Baker is him. If you know what he's doing, like, Sean Baker is him. And so it's crazy how the narrative has shifted so much and how we ended up here. But yeah, wow, what a timeline this year has been for these awards.
I love this for him. If he wins, I'll be ecstatic. Anora, for a long time, it was my best film of the year until The Brutalist came along, but it's still my second best film of 2024. It's an incredible work of art, I think, and it shines a light on an aspect of society that historically is not talked about, much less get nominated for these major awards. Like,
exactly.
Fuck are we talking about here? The first 40 minutes of the movie, it's tits and ass everywhere. Like, what? This could win an Oscar. I don't think people are really comprehending that right now. Like, what year are we in right now? This is just wild to me. And again, 9 of the last 10 Best Director winners at the DGAs win the Oscar. So the odds are heavily in his favor at this point. It seems like it's almost a foregone conclusion, perhaps, for Sean Baker. But if any year presents us with surprises, it would be this year, no doubt about it. But speaking of surprises and speaking of directors,
oh Lord,
have to talk about this. You know what I'm going to say.
I do.
At the Critics' Choice Awards, Best Director was awarded to John M. Chu for Wicked. Now, John M. Chu is not nominated at the Oscars for the Academy Award for Best Director.
Anywhere.
Where is he nominated? He's mostly not nominated anywhere. You're correct, but he's notably not nominated at the Oscars. In fact, the presenter of the award pointed out the fact that, oh yes, historically people who win this award tend to go on and win Oscars. It was like some crazy other stat.
That's crazy.
And then John M. Chu wins and presents us perhaps with the biggest upset, I think, of this award season so far. This is pretty substantial. Now, mind you, Critics' Choice, on the major scale, probably not the most major award show. It is Critics. I respect Critics. But it's not the Oscars. It's not even the BAFTAs, of course, at this point, in terms of prestige. But this has only happened 4 times in 30 years where a director wins this award, but they're not even nominated for Best Director at the Academy Awards. It's happened 3 other times. Baz Luhrmann with Moulin Rouge, which, by the way, garbage movie, terrible fucking movie. I don't know what people think about Moulin Rouge, but that shit ain't it. It also happened with Steven Spielberg, who was nominated twice for Catch Me If You Can and Minority Report in the same year, 2002, and then also Ben Affleck for Argo. All of these individuals won Best Director at Critics' Choice, but they were not even nominated at the Oscars. Now, John M. Chu joins that category. He was up against the likes of Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, Sean Baker for Anora, Edward Berger for Conclave, Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, Coralie Farge for The Substance, Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, and Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. John M. Chu won this award. Let's let that sink in. Let's just let that fester and marinate for a second there. Before I go off, what do you think about this? How do you feel about John M. Chu winning this award at the Critics' Choice?
I don't even know how to
Oh, take your time. We got all the time in the world to address this shit.
Critics' choice. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? What the hell?
Did they just feel bad? Let me just ask that first and foremost. Do you think that the critics were just like, you know what? Let's just do it. It critics love Wicked. Critics loved Wicked. It was a very well received film, and they were just like, he won't get anything else more than likely. So let's acknowledge him in this particular award body.
I'm curious if the critics' choice, their litmus test in particular, is just different. Like where they, because they are critics' choice, because it is like critic, are they? And I have to look at previous critic choice best director winners, but like this thing here is just so baffling. It makes me want to go research. Like, are they more so leaning towards they like the popular thing that happens, if that makes sense? Like they like the audience score. Like, do they lean towards that stuff in best? Like, I'm curious because that could be a factor here, but I'm still at the end of the day like, what is happening? And again, when I approach the best director category by legit a technical achievement in directing, like what did we do? Did I look at this movie and go, wow, that movie was directed so well? Like, do I say that at the end of it? And John Chu, out of all the names that you just listed, is at the bare bones bottom of the entire list of people that you
literally the bottom.
Like
the literal bottom of this list.
So I like Wicked. I don't think it's like a perfect movie at all. I actually there are problems I do have with the film. It's cool though. Wicked's cool. But man, achievement in directing, like all of these movies are like, bro, you did something crazy. Denis Villeneuve, Dune Part 2, Ramel Ross, his whole movie was from POV perspective. Like, what are we talking about? The Substance?
Yeah,
are you serious?
Just keep going. We could just keep doing this. Every single one.
What are we talking about? Like, what are we doing here, bro? The first 5 minutes of The Brutalist is nuts. Like, it's just like, what am I watching? The energy is crazy in that movie in the first 5 minutes. It's insane. Conclave. Edward Berger was going nuts in that movie, and it's a like huge ensemble film. There's so many people in that film.
He made a religious film entertaining. Like somehow he figured out to make a religious movie entertaining.
It's a bunch of dudes sitting in a room voting, and I was locked in. I was locked in the whole time. Like, what's going to happen? Like, this is crazy to me, dog. Anora, you just talked about it. Like the first 40 minutes it's I don't even know how you tell a story this good with everything that's happening in the movie. Like, it's like the first half is like I don't even know. It's just some crazy.
It's like Cinderella, basically.
It's
girl like finds romance and comes into this new world, and then all of a sudden shit hits the fan.
Cinderella and P-Valley at the beginning. It's like the second half just goes off the rails. Like, whoa, what is happening? High octane movie that I just don't know, man. I don't know how we got here. And Emilia Perez, not my favorite film, but I don't hate it. It is very audacious directorial. Like, he's doing a lot of stuff in that movie. It is an achievement in directing. I could say that. I could say Emilia Perez is an achievement in directing. It's crazy. But Wicked is like, you did what you had to do. Does that make sense? Like, it's like you did what you had to do to get the point across. And we talked about part 2 is probably going to be something more up our alley. Like, I think he's going to he has to kind of do new things and kind of bring us home in that second part. But the first one was like, you did what you had to do, not an achievement in directing. Like, and I just don't know I don't know how we got here. I don't know where critics' choice. I don't know how they voted, what they were thinking. I don't know if they usually lean towards the thing that's super popular, because if that's the choice, then I'm like, okay, y'all lean towards the thing that's super popular. I get it, like that's fine. But yeah, bro, I'm at a loss for this award, and to be honest, I don't know what to say.
So, all right, to first address what you just brought up, historically, what do we see critics' choice do? There was a time where their choices for best director in any particular given year likely was attached to more populist films. Not always, but it definitely leaned that way. I'm looking at David Fincher, Social Network. He won in 2010. George Miller wins for Mad Max Fury Road. Alfonso Cuarón wins for Gravity. These are extremely popular movies that made
Yeah.
good money at
Okay.
the box office. A lot of people saw. But over the past few years, they've somewhat shifted, and their alignment has typically fallen towards more of what we historically see out of the Academy Awards, kind of that thinking of what's the achievement in directing in this particular year. Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland, Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. We've seen how this trajectory can lead to an Academy Award typically, but that's been a
Yeah.
more recent trend. And so now with this happening, I'm like, well, now we've kind of reverted back to what they were 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Whereas the past 5, 6, 7 years, it's been more of like, okay, consistently, we're going to kind of see the same winners at this award show ultimately go on to win Best Director at the Oscars. That aside, I like John M. Chu a lot. I like a lot of his movies. I like Wicked. People don't think I like Wicked. I like Wicked, guys. Just because
Yeah.
I have notes doesn't mean I don't like the movie. I just don't like it as much as some other people. No disrespect to John M. Chu, very talented filmmaker, has worked his ass off to be in the position that he's in. This is utter complete bullshit. There's no reason and no way anybody on this planet that we call Earth can convince me that his film is better directed than all of the other films that are a part of this list. You just named a lot of the reasons as to why that's the case. The fact that he wins here, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't know what the temperature was this year. And it's also winning for a part one is really baffling to me. An unfinished story that we haven't even seen concluded on the big screen is a really, really crazy signal to me. And I'm kind of worried about what that might mean for future films and I don't know. I guess just the commentary on what we place importance on, because I need to see the second half. Like, you need to complete the vision. That's just the reality of it. Like, yes, Wicked it's a single film, but it's half of a story. There is more to come, and the second half is going to be more difficult to adapt. And I've talked about that on the show. So I really need to see this completed vision. Whereas we've seen Denis Villeneuve successfully adapt the entire Dune book, part one and part two. That is now complete. That's done. He did a magnificent, masterful job. And so if he were to win this award at the Critics' Choice, I would totally get it. That would absolutely align with what I think the tastes of critics would be in this particular year. But for John M. Chu to win, and to win for an unfinished story, and to win for a movie that's pretty good, but certainly not anywhere near the level of some of these other films, nor near the level of what the directors achieved with those other films, I just I don't really have words for it. And look, let's not just, kick the dog while he's down, but he's not even nominated for an Oscar this year. I mean, come on. What are we talking about? He didn't make the top 5. He's not in he's not in that elite category. That's just the reality of it. And so I'm happy for him that he got this shine and that he got to get on a stage and give a speech, and all of his cast and crew were extremely happy for him. That's nice and all, but at the end of the day, this is a competition. There are winners and there are losers. People have to come out on top and people have to walk away empty-handed. And if it's up to me, if I'm choosing, fucking John M. Chu's not winning this award any day of the week. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of it. So I'm baffled by it. We can't even speculate about what this means for the Oscars, because again, he's not nominated for an Oscar. So this is just like a win in a vacuum. It's kind of crazy that it went down this way. But that's enough about that. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But with directors, I do want to point this out too. At the DGAs, they have an award for first-time filmmakers, directing their first directorial feature film. Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys walked away with this award at the DGAs, which I would love for the Oscars to add this as a category. I don't know if it's first-time feature film or if it's like breakthrough. I don't know. It probably should be first-time feature film, like best directorial feature film debut. It should probably be consistent with DGAs. I would love for the Oscars to add that. But the fact that he won this award, I think it's incredible. He deserves it. I even read in a couple of reports that when he won, all of his other fellow nominees in that category stood up and gave him a standing ovation. I think realizing the achievement of what he pulled off with Nickel Boys and just like how profound and how singular it is, it's like nothing else out there. So I'm just really happy for Ramel Ross to get this acknowledgement, this recognition, this award season.
Yeah, Nickel Boy is one of my favorite movies of the year. I think Ramel he's crazy talented filmmaker, man, and to see him win this award, and I thought he would when I seen when I looked at the other nominees, I was like, Ramel just really killed this thing. And of course see that he was sliding into the Academy Awards. I said, oh shoot, Ramel has arrived. But yeah, I'm just really happy for him, and I can't wait to see where his future goes after this, man. He's a DGA award winner. Like, that's really tight. And yeah, I'm glad to see. Like you said, I'm glad this is a category though, because I like all those other. I like DD. I like My Old Ass. I haven't watched All We Imagine It's Like yet, but man, I like those movies. And it's just like, yeah, I'm glad we acknowledge those somewhere somehow. It's like, because these are important, low-key important films of the year. Like both DD and My Old Ass, I think made my top 25 last year. So I'm like, yeah, at least somebody's talking about them somewhere. But yeah, it's a pretty cool category.
So let's address the elephant in the room. Emilia Perez. The fortunes of this movie have changed drastically over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
If you're not up to date, the star of the film, Karla Sofía Gascón, basically there were some uncovered tweets that were pulled up from a journalist from a few years ago. These all occurred in 2020, 2021. Very, very, very troubling, honestly, just disgusting tweets from Karla Sofía Gascón, the star of Emilia Perez. She just said some really dumb shit, some really terrible shit about multiple groups of people. It was not even targeted at just like one thing or one idea. I mean, she said troubling stuff about Muslim people. She said troubling stuff about Black people and George Floyd. She spoke about the coronavirus in a really, really terrible way. She talked shit about her co-star, Selena Gomez. It's just a lot of really damning stuff that was uncovered from Karla Sofía Gascón. So much so that Netflix has basically kind of severed ties with her at this point. She was going to be in attendance at all of these shows, at the Critics' Choice, at the DGAs, at the PGAs. They've obviously been on this awards run just like the rest of all of the contenders, but Netflix severed ties and basically said, we're not paying for anything for you. We're not paying for flights. We're not paying for glam. If you decide to come, it'll be on your own dime and dollar. Wow. And not only that, she also decided to do an interview with CNN Espanol without the approval or without the consultation of Netflix. She decided to do a sort of a sit-down interview addressing all of this. And I didn't watch it because it's mostly in Spanish, but from what I heard and from what I read in the translations, she just did not make anything better. A lot of defensive behavior and just didn't make the situation better at all. Jacques Audiard, he's basically said he doesn't really want to talk to her, and he's very, very upset that she's harming the production. She's harming her co-stars with this rhetoric and with just her actions. She's deleted her X account. She's also just come out to say like she'll no longer be speaking on this, and she's just going to kind of fade into the background. This has had a ripple effect in numerous ways. A couple of weeks ago, we had talked about how the Academy was deciding to bring back the Fab Five concept at this year's Oscars, in which 5 previous winners would come back and talk about the nominees in the acting categories. They've scrapped that now because who's going to get up and speak positively about Karla Sofía Gascón after that bullshit? It's not going to happen. So they have scrapped it for the acting categories, I believe. I think they're going to probably do it for some others, some of the technical categories, but the acting has been scrapped. They claim that they scrapped it before all of this shit popped off. I don't believe that for a second. I think that this is all due to what she did and what was ultimately found. And now there's questions as to whether or not she'll even be at the Academy Awards. If she does show up, is she going to do press? Probably not. And does this ultimately affect the chances for Emilia Perez to win anything? It was seemingly a front runner in a lot of categories, but now its fate's up in question. And with Critics' Choice, Zoe Saldana did still win her award. Jacques Audiard won an award, but Critics' Choice voting closed before all of the stuff got unearthed for Karla. But voting is underway right now for the Academy, so they have all of this knowledge about Emilia Perez at this moment. So just want to ask your thoughts about it, and ultimately, what do you think about the possibility that it likely kind of kills any chances for Emilia Perez? Do you think that that's the case? Do you think it still has any chance to win anything Oscar night, or is the backlash going to be so harmful that it can walk away winless?
First of all, Karla Sofía Gascón either needs a publicist or needs a better publicist. One of the two. I don't know which one, but that is a PR nightmare. What is going on over there in her camp? Like, I don't. Yeah,
it's like crisis management 101. Hey, maybe you should delete your social media. Let's start there. Go scrub your shit.
There. That's day one. Like, so yeah, what do your tweets look like? What does your Instagram look like? How's your branding? Like, all that PR stuff. What? Like, I don't know what we were doing there. Especially, interesting. In terms of actually, also I'm really sad that they have to scrap the 5 last nominees come back and talk about the current because I thought that was cool. I remember we talked about it a couple years ago. We was like, this is great. Why don't we do this every year? And now it has to get scrapped because of this. It's just like so unfortunate because that was a really cool part of the show. I remember both of us really liking that. I will. I think big, like huge awards. I definitely think this entire controversy as well as the controversy before. I think that's the thing. Like this isn't like just a one-off thing. Like Mid Perez has just been a big ball of wow. Like
it's polarizing. There's no other way to put it.
Very polarizing movie. Like there's so much that's been talked about this film day in and day out. It probably is the most talked about nominee out of all of this. Like it's crazy. And it doesn't help, I think, that it is on Netflix. So a lot of people have seen the film. So a lot of people do have opinions on the film. Like definitely more than a lot of these other movies. A lot of people have seen Emilia Perez for that simple fact that it's a little more accessible. Which it's funny. You think it would help it, but it kind of went in the opposite direction, which is also interesting. It kind of hurt the film as well. I think this does not hurt Zoe Saldana in particular. I don't. I think she still feels very front runnery to me for the most part. I think people still acknowledge her for what she's done. Now, for that other stuff with like the way the Globes are treating Emilia Perez, and I think that's dead. I do. I really do think that's dead. A lot of voting, like you just said, hasn't concluded yet. I think including I think BAFTA hasn't finished, and you said Academy Awards is still going through rounds. Like a lot of people still haven't finished voting. Like a lot of these award shows that are coming up, they are not set in stone. And so I don't think Emilia Perez will have the showing in the second part of award season that it did in the first part of award season. I really don't. And I think we'll see that. And I think we've already started to see a little bit of it with the way Anora kind of looks in some of these other winners. Or in the way some of these other winners are starting to shake up. But yeah, man, I really don't. I think out of all of this, I don't think Emilia Perez will have the same energy. But I think people are still gonna kind of find a way to say, you know, Zoe Saldana, you did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think Zoe is still kind of the front runner right now. SAG will tell us a lot when that happens in a couple of weeks. Everything else, death nail. It's over. I think it's a wrap for Emilia Perez, which I hate that it went down in this way. The fact that it's probably in the rear view in terms of any likelihood of winning anything major at the Academy Awards. I'm not mad at that outcome personally because it's not my favorite film amongst all the films that are nominated, but you don't want to see it go down in this way, a very, very preventable way, and in a way in which the literal title star of the movie doesn't appear to be a good person, just does not appear to be the best individual. In a movie that's supposed to be about embracing identities and being open and all of those different ideas. If you've seen the film, it's just it's really unfortunate, but it is what it is. I mean, you reap what you sow, and they didn't take the necessary precautions to prevent something like this, which they should have done from day one. As soon as she became a notable public figure, you got to get ahead of this stuff, especially now. Like we've been through so many examples of people going down because of old shit like this, and to not learn that lesson, it's almost negligent, to be honest with you. And so I think Emilia Perez, it's probably gonna very much suffer the consequences, with the exception of Zoe Saldana. But that'll sort of round out where things are as of now. Of course, we'll talk about SAG Awards, BAFTAs when those happen, and start to get closer to the Academy Awards, and ultimately give our final predictions when that show does air on March 2nd. But for now, those are all of our thoughts on the current state of award season, the CCAs, the DGAs, and the PGAs. If you have any thoughts on the winners so far, definitely hit us up and let us know what you think.